today. All right, I appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. Electronic monitoring, as you know, is a program that the CMPD manages and owns. Our detectives monitor approximately 400 to 500 participants at any given time. These participants have been ordered by a judge or magistrate to wear a monitor as a condition of their pretrial release. Now, for those of you that were not with us this morning, we have newly minted Major Tanya Arrington, who is over the Community Services Bureau, who also oversees the electronic monitoring unit. She's going to discuss some developments with our electronic monitoring program, specifically about some policy changes that the department is both considering and instituting. At this time, I will turn it over to Major Tanya Arrington. Major Arrington.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Like you said, as of about 3 hours ago, I am now Major Tanya Arrington, assigned to Community Services Bureau, and I'm going to discuss some numbers with you today about electronic monitoring, as well as going over several cases. Electronic monitoring unit is comprised of 1 sergeant, 6 officers, and 2 civilians. Currently, we are monitoring 463 individuals. 31 of those individuals have been charged with murder. Let me say that again. 31 people on electronic monitoring right now have been charged with murder, and they're currently out. 134 individuals on electronic monitoring have been charged with armed robbery. 12 people on electronic monitoring are currently facing rape charges. Year to date, 127 people have cut their electronic monitors off. 18 of those are still outstanding. 20% of that 127 were charged with armed robbery or common law robbery charges. Around 100 people on electronic monitoring have committed another crime while being monitored. At least one of those charges was murder while on an EM device. 4 others, while on an EM device, have been charged with armed robbery. In 2018, we had 2 people that were charged with murder while out on bond with the EM, and 25 people that committed armed robbery while out on EM. Now I'd like to discuss 3 cases. This is Mr. Craig Singleton. He was charged out on EM for 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, 2 counts of shooting into an occupied dwelling. He fired multiple rounds into his ex's home that also had a child and a grandmother in the house. A 10-year-old child was in the house when he fired into it. He was charged with 3 additional counts of assault with a deadly weapon, intent to kill, for his role in this incident. Jordan Johnson, on EM for robbery, arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury after shooting the victim following a verbal altercation. Tyrell Culbreth, on EM for B&E charges. He allowed his device to die, cut it, and racked up several new violent charges, including armed robbery and first-degree kidnapping. So discuss some of the numbers, a couple of the cases, and now I'm going to turn it over to the chief so he can discuss what we're looking at moving forward.
Good afternoon. A couple things I want to make you aware of. One is this is still in the analysis phase. We're still assessing the program overall. I said before, It is costly, about just over $400,000 a year, and you heard the staffing implications as well. And you know that we're short officers. So we got to really assess to see if we're getting exactly what we want and what we intended to get from this electronic monitoring program overall. The other thing is you're looking at very violent offenses, 31 homicides. Moving forward, we're not going to accept homicide suspects onto EM. So from now on, they're going to either have to be held in jail or the judge is going to let them out. But we can't, in good faith, allow for our people to monitor people who are charged with murder. That just does not make good sense if we're true to our mission, which is crime prevention. The other piece of it is armed robbery. She mentioned armed robbery combined with common law. The difference is the weapon. So we're also assessing if we're going to have the capacity and the willingness to monitor those who are charged with armed robbery. I keep talking about gun violence, and it's time for us to get serious on accountability around gun violence. These are a couple of steps we're taking now, one of which will be in effect starting next week. Starting next week, we'll no longer accept homicide charges for suspects who will be monitored on electronic monitoring. At this point, the Major and I'll entertain any questions you have about EM.
Chief, is this solely a CMPD decision, or the judges obviously order them on the monitoring? Is that anything that has to be communicated between the two?
One of the judges is quoted as saying it is the chief's program. So I'm the one who makes the decision. This organization is deciding this is the way we're going to go.
Was there any consultation with the court system?
I don't need to. I'm the only chief. They don't consult with me when they recommend people or make the condition. Therefore, it's my decision, if it's our program, to make a decision that I think now puts the onus back on them to determine really if they feel they're a threat to public safety.
Chief, there was some suggestion that you may actually be considering dropping the program entirely or handing it off to some other agency. Is that still on the table?
I would love to do the latter. I would love to give this back to an agency, community corrections, probation. This is really within their realm. Because it was a capacity issue before, we're not really going to go that route right now. But we are assessing to make sure, as it relates to violent crime, we're being a bit more strategic and intentional. Yes, sir.
You said a capacity issue. That's just a capacity as a jail issue?
No, capacity for community corrections. Yes, they have a lot of people on monitoring, as do we, and it becomes difficult to manage those large caseloads.
Do you think you have enough people on your staff monitoring the number of criminals that are out on electronic monitoring?
Absolutely not. Truthfully, there are always over 900 people awaiting, so that would be one officer almost per suspect. That's not a part of what we should be doing. So, no, we don't have the staff. Obviously, that's why we're making this assessment.
Chief, for a point of clarity, when you say you will no longer accept a murder suspect on electronic monitoring, if a judge orders electronic monitoring, you say you won't accept it, what happens then?
Yeah, well, it's our program, so there will be no opportunity to make that a condition. The program won't exist for homicide suspects.
And do I hear you saying that you may consider expanding this to armed robbery suspects and
We're assessing,
rape
I'm sorry.
suspects as well?
Without a doubt, we're assessing it. Right now, what we intended was we wanted to keep an eye on those that we thought would be more likely to recidivate on specific victims. It is expanded, obviously, beyond that for some of the other violent crime, in particular, sex assault. So it'll be an assessment. Right now, the next step is to look at armed robbery in particular. Nowhere beyond that currently. But again, it will always be up for a further assessment and analysis. Yes.
Can I ask maybe,
Sure.
you might consider, I'm not suggesting you should, but you might consider somebody who's already cut their monitor off once. I know some of those people actually are put back on monitors. Have you looked at
That is
you cut?
I'm sorry, Mike, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, I'm just wondering if that would be a consideration as well.
It's part of the assessment as well. Absolutely. Here's the thing. If it hasn't worked the first time, there are no guarantees it's going to work on the second time around. So we're looking at all of those things and some additional charges that we're considering because we want to make sure in good faith we're trying to provide a service that gives us something that we can stand behind. I cannot stand behind having homicide suspects on EM that we monitor out in the community. I think the better place for them would be in jail awaiting trial.
Chief, I spoke with a former chief magistrate today who said that the program was initially instituted for those larceny and theft suspects. Why do you think it's escalated to putting those murder suspects on the EM program?
The best of intentions. We in this profession, our police officers who do fantastic work, want to do the right thing and want to have something that we can utilize. And this became a safety net. It shouldn't be. The test is, are people going to show up for court? And then, is it a public safety issue? That's the two-part test that I keep hearing from magistrates and judges. I think the second step in that assessment is the weakest. They're going to need to strengthen that.
How would you describe the program's success overall?
Overall, I think it does provide for some level of success, because the vast majority, most people do not recidivate. But here's the thing. If we have somebody on homicide who kills somebody else, you're not going to ask anybody else in the justice system about that. You're going to show up here, you're going to camp out in our parking lot, you're going to stalk us, and you're going to ask that question of me. Now, I'm going to say, ask the question of whoever, let them out, because I had nothing to do with that. It's about responsibility. I have a responsibility to the public. I own everything we do, good, bad, or indifferent. The vast majority of it is good. But I'm not going to own it for everybody else. So, yes, it'll be a question for other people, the people who actually release them and allow them to get back out in the community.
Can you speak to the jail's current capacity? Do you expect overcrowding to be an issue?
Another good question, that will be a question for the sheriff. I'm the chief of police. I have no idea what his capacity is. Every time I talk, though, there seems to be room for at least one more.
Chief, are you still planning to retire January 1st?
I'm sorry, are we transitioning? All right, that's a good segue. Good segue, Steve. Yes. I intend to retire, but it will not be January 1st of 2020. And here's the deal. It became a big distraction. I was just trying to do what so many others before me have done, take a break, relax, refocus, and re-engage. Still going to relax, but I'm not going to retire to do so. Already focused, and I'm not going to stop engaging. I told you, we have a lot of work to do. Everybody's talking about the homicide rate. I tell you, think about the families impacted. Much better context. So there's work to do to fight violent crime. Our people are doing great work. I told you, I think a week ago, up about 20% in arresting violent criminals. Violent crime arrests are up about 20%. Gun seizures up about 10%. We're doing a lot of good work that we have to continue. The other thing is, right now we're in a good place with conversations with the state retirement system, the leadership there. We've already provided our policies. We want to make sure our policies clearly align with their expectations and their interpretations of the law and the guidelines that they've given us. So as long as that continues, and I know other officers aren't going to have any scrutiny around their process of being hired back within the parameters that are placed upon us by the state, we're going to be in good shape. We're ready to roll. We're ready to get to work.
Do you plan to retire after the RNC then? Is there a date set?
I'm not going to say. I'm going to retire eventually. I'm kind of liking this job.
What changed your mind?
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. What else about that? I know you have more questions about that. And this is the only time I'm going to entertain you. So let's have it. What do you got? What do you want? What do you want to know?
I know you're not in this
Mark? Yes, ma'am.
I know you're not in this business for the money, but do you feel you're leaving money on the table?
There's no doubt I'm leaving money on the table, but it's not about money. Right now, as long as my people are okay, we're going to conquer everything ahead of us. We're going to have a fantastic preparation and then execution of a plan for the Republican National Convention. And then, ma'am, I'll decide what's next, whether or not it's retirement or something else. Pleasure.
And Chief, are you planning, the initial plan was to take some time off, in the early part of 2020. You obviously have that time coming to you. Do you plan to take that break?
I have planned, I'll give you my itinerary and my shoe size later, but I have plans already where I've booked trips with my family, and I'm going to do that. All right? Shoe size is 12. I'm an Aquarius. Favorite color is purple. I'm done sharing. But what else is on your mind?
Back to electronic monitoring.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Clarify for me, the 31 people who are currently on EM.
And charged with murder.
What will happen again? Can you just
So,
clarify?
very good question. Thank you. So right now, I think it would be ill-advised to just take all those monitors off, but we will put no more on. So as those 31 go through some phase of adjudication and they come off, it will be off for the last time. So moving forward, we will not add to that number of 31. Very good question. Thank you for that.
What do you want the public to know about the new policies and procedures that you're putting in place? A lot of people might think, well, if they're not on the EM system, how are we going to know that we're safe? What is
I
your
would say
response to that?
ask those who should be monitoring them in the first place. That is really not a police function. We absorbed it like we always do. The best of intentions got us here, and now we're paying a price. I would say hold accountable those who let them out if they're charged with homicide. Sometimes in this life you get what you tolerate. That should not be tolerated. My humble opinion. What else? As always, I appreciate the, yes, sir. I'm not going to say what I want to say, Mark. As always, I appreciate your willingness to get the message out to the masses. That means a lot to us. I hope I've answered any questions that you may have. The major's going to be here for further questions around electronic monitoring. Please have a safe weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. We will send out, I know Major Arrington covered a lot of facts and statistics, and we will send out a release with that information, as well as the pictures that you'll see on the TV screen here. We'd also like to thank Councilman Tark Bakari and Councilman Larkin Eggleston for coming over for the second half of that announcement there. With all that, appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you very much.